Loch Morar is a freshwater loch in Highland Scotland, created by glacial action around 10,000 years ago. It's located approximately 6 kilometres or 4 miles south of the west coast port village of Mallaig, and is the 5th largest loch by surface area in Scotland. For me as a canoeist, to come to Scotland is always an adventure. The wilderness, opportunity to wild camp and explore some of the most remote parts of the British Isles has always held an enduring appeal to me. But living in East Anglia, the effort to travel to Scotland is considerable. This was to be a solo paddle over 2 days, to canoe from end to end, exploring the mountain-shrouded shoreline and many of the islands the loch has to offer. The loading of the canoe and impending launch stirred my excitement and filled me with hope and anticipation. Due to the remoteness and inaccessibility of the terrain, it was important to carry safety and survival equipment, an acknowledgement of my frailty and vulnerability to the elements of nature.
Welcome to Loch Morar. What an absolutely fabulous day in prospect. It took me well over 12 hours to get up here yesterday. Is that kind of effort going to be worth it? Well, only time will tell. But the weather is set fair and I don't think I could have asked for a better start to my adventure. This western part of Loch Morar is characterised with a lot of these islands, definitely worth a visit. So I'm going to go over and have a look at that one, and then I'm going to work my way across the loch in a southerly direction.
Bay is densely covered with a wide variety of flora. Scots pine, hazel, oak and birch are a few of the tree species. Traditionally, the island was used by the local population as grazing for their cattle herds and was completely bare of trees.
So I've just set off over there and I've only done a kilometre or so. So I'm into these islands here. I'll show you that. I'm setting out from the western edge of Loch Morar. I'm going to work my way through the archipelago in a southerly direction across to the other side, and then I'm going to head east up in towards the depths of Loch Morar. That's a total distance of approximately 40 kilometres fully circumnavigated. They say that Loch Morar is the deepest freshwater loch or lake or body of water in the whole of the United Kingdom. It's even deeper than Loch Ness. So let's go and have a look.
Making the crossing to the southern shore, the sun came out and the temperature rose, and it was turning into a beautiful, bright Scottish morning. The shoreline was regularly punctuated with heavy shingle beaches. As the morning progressed, I started to look for a lunch stop. Stopped for lunch. I've done about 8.5 kilometres. I started here, just on the northwest side of Loch Morar, gone through the islands to the south side, and I'm now just by this little island of Eileen Elma. I think that's how you might pronounce it. Yeah, beautiful location. So gonna have sausage and tomatoes and a bit of bread. The wind's just started to pick up. There's a little bit of chop on the loch surface. It's coming around this corner. I took some water on board with a couple of larger waves, and then I saw this little inlet, and it's relatively sheltered here, you can see. I thought maybe have a little break, let the intensity of the sun die down, which I hope will reduce the wind. There's another little island, and I'm not quite sure if I can get through to the right hand side of it as I'm looking at it. So it looks like it could be quite shallow. Or I might have to go around to the left. The only way to find out is to go and have a look. No way through. Let's go round.
Looks like a few houses on the other side of that inlet. Also looks like there is a pier marked on the map. Yep, I think I'm going to make my way around that bay and go and have a look at that. As the wind's picked up, it's getting a bit choppy and I don't really want to go too far away from the shore. Try and get as much wind protection as I can, although it is on my back, so it's actually helping me. I'm doing a good 5 kilometers per hour. I just hope it dies down in the next day or two for my return journey. Well, I'm fairly flying along at 5.2 kilometers per hour according to my GPS, and that's because I've got the wind on my back. Now the wind is a blessing and a curse at the same time because there's an asymmetry effect. So let's get a little bit mathematical just for a moment. Let's assume that I can do 3 kilometers per hour in still air conditions. That means in 1 hour I'm going to cover 3 kilometers. However, with a bit of a brisk wind on my back, say 1.5 kilometers per hour like it is today, then that 3 kilometers is added to the wind, making it 4.5 kilometers per hour when I'm going downwind. Of course, the opposite is when I'm into wind. So if I'm doing 3 kilometers in still air conditions with 1.5 kilometers into wind, then I'm going to take that from my 3 kilometers per hour. So overall, I'm only going to be doing 1.5 kilometers per hour. And that's where the asymmetry is coming in, because when I'm going downwind, I'm doing 4.5 kilometers per hour, into wind 1.5, and that's a factor of 3. So if I go for the whole day downwind, however far I go in one day, that's going to take me 3 days to go back into wind because of that asymmetry of the wind effect. Now, hopefully it won't be quite that bad, and the wind will either die down or it might even shift in direction, and hopefully might even be on my back on the homeward passage. But of course there's other days when the wind is always in your face, so it's definitely worth considering at these slow speeds the effect of the wind. I hope I haven't completely bored you with that bit of maths, and I hope you followed it. Anyway, there's about an hour to go at this speed, and then I will be at the end of Loch Morar. At the far eastern end of this loch there is a bothy. Apparently it's the most isolated bothy in Scotland. It's called Oban Bothy. We'll go and have a look at it, but I don't think I'm going to have any intention in staying there. I think I'd prefer to be in my own tent out on the shoreline, but we'll go and have a look. In any case, it's a good objective, somewhere to aim for today's paddle, and that will be 20 kilometres in total, which is halfway. Just see the bothy coming into view. It's got a green roof. It's about 800 metres away.
That's it inside. Well, it's nice and dry and it's out of the wind. I can imagine this would be an absolute godsend if you were stuck out on the mountain and you needed some shelter. Nice and dry. Yeah, so fireplace, some candles and some fire lighting stuff just there. Some gas bottle. Very good. Let's go upstairs. It's really warm up here. I guess, yeah, the tin roof is radiating heat through. Lovely and dry. It's got a great smell. It's a shame you can't smell it. Sort of old fireplace, burnt wood, very evocative smell. That's the view from the window. Can't see my canoe, which is a bit of a concern. I hope it's just down there. So that's the Oban Bothy, but I'm not going to stop here. I'm going to go and pitch my tent on the other side of the loch and look back this way. Tea is on the go. Chicken supreme with carrots and potatoes while I enjoy this wonderful sunshine. Morning, welcome to day 2, 8 o'clock, and I'm setting off with somewhat of a wind behind me, so
I'm very pleased with that. I want to make the most of these conditions. Yeah, I had a pretty good sleep last night. Very, very peaceful. The wind died down at about 10 o'clock at night and the moon came out. Stuck my head outside the tent, and honestly, with no artificial human lights and just the moonlight, it was incredible to be able to see the mountainsides and the loch. It was incredible. Anyway, on with day 2. Yeah, down this end of the loch there is a couple of little islands. They're not particularly big. Got a couple of trees on them, but they're more or less just granite outcrop with a little bit of grass on. Not like the ones at the other end, which are really quite wooded. I also saw a couple of wild horses. Well, at least I think they're wild. They were mooching around on the slopes just over there.
A white-tailed eagle. What a rare sight.
I'm at South Torin Bay. I've done about 8 kilometres. I've come down here, just moored up, and I'm going to take a short hike now over towards North Torren Bay and into Loch Nevis, which could be a possible portage if somebody wanted to take the canoe up and over and into Loch Nevis, and then you can do a whole load more canoeing and circumnavigate all the way back down to Mallaig. Anyway, I've switched into my hiking boots, but perhaps this skull isn't the best omen.
A portage could be attempted by carrying your canoe on your shoulder yoke or using a canoe dolly trailer, which allows you to pull or push your canoe on wheels. Bear in mind also that this is a rough, uneven track littered with rocks and potholes.
Well, I don't think much about portaging up this gradient. That would be a lot of hard work. Perhaps if you want some sort of minimum equipment, you might be able to do it, but this is quite some climb. Just reached the saddle, the highest point, dropping back down, so that's about 700 meters. So if you are going to think about portaging this, yeah, consider that. And now it's equally as steep going back down the other side. So I think controlling a canoe on its little dolly cart could be quite difficult.
The track between South and North Tarbet Bay is 1.4 kilometres or just under a mile, but it ascends over 73 metres or 240 feet in elevation, up to the midpoint at 700 metres, making the average gradient over 10%, or 1 metre up for every 10 metres travelled, making this a very hard effort to portage.
But for the more adventurous, this is an option. There's Loch Nevis. Now apparently, the most inaccessible pub in the United Kingdom is on the far shore over there, just round that corner. You can only access the pub by water, so a boat or a canoe, or if you're really up to it, a swim.
The Old Forge pub at Inverie holds the Guinness World Record for the remotest pub in mainland Great Britain. It is only accessible by boat or by a 16-mile, 26-kilometre walk through rough country, and the 7 miles of tarred road are not connected to the United Kingdom road system.
Welcome to North Torren Bay, where the sea appears to be even flatter and calmer than the loch. Since that little hike, the wind has died down and the loch is very flat. I just hope that the wind hasn't actually changed, because then it will be in my face. I'm going to try and find somewhere to have some lunch. It's 10 to 12.
Swordland Lodge. The name Swordland is believed to be derived from the Norse word Svordland, which translates literally to sword land. The Swordland Lodge is a historic building, including being used as a training facility during World War II by the Special Operations Executive, or the SOE. It is only accessible by boat.
First of all, a nice cup of coffee. time for a 3-egg omelette, sausages and tomatoes. All of a sudden, the sun has come out, the wind has picked up, and I'm going nowhere fast. It's become a bit of a struggle, and it all happened in the space of about 2 minutes. I keep looking at my GPS and it keeps saying 0. That's not good. Battling just to hold my own position. Just going to try and get into the coast a little bit, try and shelter myself. Hopefully, as the wind comes across and hits these cliffs, it has to go up so it's less into your face. Or at least that's how the theory goes. Well folks, just around that corner I will have completed today's paddle. That will be about 21.5 kilometres, another half marathon today. I did 21.5 yesterday, so a marathon complete, that's 42 kilometres in all. The conditions are pretty much near perfect now. It's been a bit of a mixed bag today. The wind picked up at various times this afternoon, but now the sun has come out and completely burnt off all the clouds. The wind seems to have died down, but at least the loch surface is pretty flat and calm. So I guess the last thing to do is go back to my original question of whether or not coming to Scotland to go canoeing is worth it. Is canoeing worth it? While I ponder that thought, I'd like to just end by saying thanks very much for joining me on this canoe trip. I hope that you've enjoyed it and you found the video entertaining, perhaps a little bit informative. And if you have any comments at all, do drop me a line below. I'll try my best to answer it. And until the next time, happy paddling. And goodbye from Loch Morar. Well, that has been a thoroughly enjoyable paddle, although completely knackering. Get back to the van now, get myself something to eat, get my head down.